Hello, this is James Pease, and we're back with another edition of our deep dive into lean integrated project delivery. If you're new here, I've been in the design and construction industry for just about 20 years, mostly working as an owner's representative in the healthcare industry. And today I'm going to talk about setting contingency. So one of the biggest conversations we have when you're an owner or a contractor, design firm, is what's the right amount of contingency to set as you're negotiating for a contract price. So in a lump sum project, that's not an issue. We put it out, we get 3 bids. Whoever's the lowest most of the time, we take that price, and we don't have transparency into the numbers. But when we use a guaranteed maximum price with a cost reimbursed contract or an integrated project delivery model, there's usually a negotiated contingency percentage which the contractor carries. And that contingency is usually used to address things that were incomplete with the design or means and methods that the contractor chooses to implement. So when I'm negotiating with the construction team about what's the appropriate contingency, I consider 3 things. I look at what is the stage of the design that we're in, what is my comfort with the estimate, and what are the unresolved issues. So let's break down each of these. Design stage. In a traditional design delivery, we break it up into a schematic design, design development, and construction documents. Integrated project delivery changes that to conceptual design, design development, and implementation documents, which we can explore in a later video. But for this, we'll use schematic design, design development, and construction documents. So in schematic design, we're typically doing the layout, the floor plans. What is this new space going to look like? Design development, we go into more detail and we start doing elevation. So for healthcare, it's what kind of equipment is going to be in the room, what are the walls going to look like, where are things going to hang, what's going to be on the ceiling, start to lay out what we call the reflected ceiling plan. And then in construction documents is where the team really dives deep into how it's going to be built. They're detailing the framing, they're detailing, if it's a new building, they're detailing all of the intricate pieces that are going to be required to build the building and get the construction permitted so the engineers and the building inspectors can evaluate it. So the reason I dive into that is if you're very early in conceptual or schematic design or design development, then you might want a bigger contingency. There's more things that can happen. There's more questions that haven't been answered. The corollary to that is if you're late, if you've finished construction documents or you're even submitted for a permit and you're going to get a permit soon, then the likelihood that you haven't resolved things and that there's unforeseen issues is significantly smaller. So if I'm setting contingency earlier, it's usually a bigger number, maybe 5-10%, even if I'm really early in design and the program hasn't settled down. And later in design, I think a typical GMP type contingency after you've bid out all of the lump sum trades is around 3%. So I'm looking at where am I in design. The next piece is my comfort with the estimate. I see I spelled comfort wrong. So my comfort, so I'm getting all of the backup from the design and construction team, and I'm able to review the subcontractor bids. I like to do a guaranteed maximum price with the primary trade partners, so mechanical, electrical, framing, and drywall. If I'm looking at their proposals and I'm going through, I like to interview them as well, and if I have a high level of comfort that they've covered the scope and that they're not too fat, which means that I feel like they're being aggressive in places and they're not just throwing big numbers at things, then that's going to have me side towards a smaller contingency. If I feel that the team hasn't sharpened their pencils, as we say, and that maybe there's some more fat in their numbers, then I'll be looking for the overall contingency in the GMP to be a smaller percentage. Also, if all of the trades have been bid, then there's a lot of risk that's come out for the general contractor, so I'm looking for a smaller contingency. If the trades haven't been bid and we're still early, and so there's a chance that numbers could move around, maybe a little bit larger contingency. And then the last piece is unresolved issues. So sometimes we'll just throw a larger contingency because we know we're going to have to deal with a constructability issue or a permitting issue, and so we'll just throw a bigger number at it. I try hard not to do that. I will usually push a team to say, okay, what do you need to figure out? How much more time do you need? Do we need to spend some money to do some investigation? What do you need to know so that you can reduce that contingency? Because in my personal experience, anytime we just throw money at a problem without doing the work, we're usually wrong. Most cases we don't have enough money, and once we figure out what the actual solution is, it ends up costing more than we anticipated. So what I've found is if the team doesn't want to look at it and they just want to throw money at it, it's probably because the issue is complicated and they don't have a good solution for it and they want to deal with it later. So I'd advise all project teams, whether you're the owner, contractor, designer, if there is a big unknown issue as you're negotiating the contract, don't just throw money at it. Take a little bit more time and try to resolve the issue. If you can't do that, then you need to clearly bracket it. So you need to set, okay, these are what our assumptions on. These are what I would expect the team to include. These are what I would expect the team not to include, so that when you have the solution down the road, you've already kind of pre-negotiated what that change order is going to look like, and it's not a surprise where you as the owner are not wanting to pay for it, or you as the contractor need the owner to pay it, because if you don't, you're not going to make your profit on the project. So all of these things together, looking at what stage of design you're in, what's your comfort with the estimate, and are there any major unresolved issues, would drive you to set that contingency. So for me, in an integrated project delivery contract, I've seen everything from 3 to 6%. I personally feel like the sweet spot is right around 4%. That's maybe in the middle of design development or near the end of design development. I feel very comfortable setting a contract value with 4%. Now, there's some levers, and we'll talk about that in the next video, when you're setting what the risk-reward plan is. So what does the team put at risk, and what do they get as a reward if they deliver really well on the project? Then that comes into a negotiation as well when setting contingency. I'd like to address one additional way that some teams, especially in integrated project delivery, address contingencies. They'll create a risk register where they'll actually list out line by line the major risks that they know of, and then they will apply a dollar value and a percentage likelihood, and they'll multiply that, and they'll get a weighted average of all the risks on the project. And some teams will use that, the sum of the weighted average of all of their risks, to determine a project contingency. I personally find that it generally comes out somewhere between 3 and 5%, so I prefer to just separate the contingency percentage from the risk that you're going to be tracking. And so I think that's enough for this video. When you're setting contingency, make sure you're thinking holistically about what's left to do and the risks on your specific job, and don't get too caught up in picking one percentage or another. Make sure you understand the whole picture of what you're trying to accomplish. And with that, I'd encourage you to subscribe for future videos. And if you want to see something different or additional from this post or any of our others, please make sure to comment down below and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much.